everyone. Welcome back to the C Morning Show. It's time for us now. We're jumping in fast now to our last hour of our program. Hence, that's why we're jumping into our second discussion of the day, which now we're going to focus on the nation's food system. Joining me is my colleague, of course, Chef Archie.
Yes.
I think you should be the interviewer and interviewee. You should interview yourself.
Yeah, maybe on the next program, maybe. So the food system is, I want to talk to you about, of course, food system. It is crucial because it directly impacts a nation's progress through the equitable distribution of nutrition. And recently, an Indonesian researcher based in Germany, Carin Noerhadi, who is part of the independent research institute Foodagogic, launched a publication on creating a more inclusive, nutritious, and regenerative food system in Indonesia. So how can we turn these ideas into reality?
Yes,
We're excited to have Carin with us from Germany. So Carin, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Goedemorgen. I mean, it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock in the morning over there.
Excuse ourselves
Thank you
for
for
waking
joining
you up,
us.
Carin.
Okay.
There you go.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, Carin, let's begin by explaining the food system, what the food system is, and what is the current situation here in Indonesia.
So food systems involve an entire range of actors, and they're interlinked value-adding activities. So from production to distribution, processing, distribution, consumption to disposal of food. So if you think of food, a piece of fruit, for example, a banana, there's a whole range of supply chain behind that banana, right? So there's the producers, but also how that banana is being disposed is all part of the food systems. And current Indonesian food systems are challenged, or it has been challenged. Foodagogic particularly focuses on 3 main food system elements. So production, consumption, and waste. We don't talk a lot about the aggregation and processing part of it, just to sort of narrow down our focus. And key challenges in production is, one, Indonesian food systems are still largely monoculture focused. So it centers a lot on rice, for example, and other strategic commodities. Strategic commodities, depending on the data you use, it ranges from 7 to 12. So rice, corn, soybean, shallot, garlic, etc. The other challenge with production is that it's a one-size-fits-all policy. It centers on rice, as I mentioned, as the big source of food, just the food systems in Indonesia center so much on rice. The other 2 challenges are consumption and waste. So consumption, Indonesia is experiencing what's called the nutrition transition. So it's characterized by a shift from largely homemade meals to more processed foods, high in salt, sugar, fats. This has impact on health. So an increase of diet-related diseases, for example, in Indonesia has been increasing the past 5 years. And there's also low dietary diversity. So what happens on consumption also reflects in, what happens on production also reflects on consumption. The production side focuses on rice. The consumption side is very high. There's a high intake of rice, which means there's low dietary diversity.
Right.
And with waste, many still struggle, to meet their daily dietary needs, but tons of foods are being wasted, and much of them are actually cereals or rice. 44% of food that's being wasted is rice. So there's a lot of misalignment between production, consumption, and waste, and all of them actually center on rice, the rice hegemony. That's what we call it.
I agree on this upon knowing that how the culture of Indonesian, the communities itself is very different. Some people are, you were talking about rice, which is a very staple food right here in Indonesia, as we all know. But, some people, like you were saying, there's a lot of food waste, especially in rice. Some people, like the rice to be warm. So, maybe in the morning they eat rice and they felt like, no, in the afternoon I need to eat rice, but I want a new cooked rice, and you cook one. So then what happened with the first one in the morning is also a waste. Now,
Right.
in regards to this, you already mentioned to us some key point challenges that is faced right now by Indonesia. If we don't change around, Carin, what would be the potential threats that we as a nation will face in the future?
There's a lot of impact on climate when we focus on rice. Rice is a particularly problematic commodity because it's really hard on the climate. It needs it's very resource intensive, needs a lot of water, for example, which is not, we don't have that availability or even accessibility in Indonesia. It also releases a lot of methane. That's the second most or more harmful than carbon dioxide, 4 times more harmful than carbon dioxide. That's not really talked about in rice production. So there's impacts or negative impacts on the climate, but there's also negative impacts on health. Right. So those are the two things or the two sectors that Food focuses on: climate and health. And the challenge, the impact of these is we're seeing it now. It's not that it's going to happen in the future. We're already seeing it now. And I guess the report that we published recently, we're trying to say we see progress, but it's not fast enough for us to transform to have a better, or I guess better in this case, is more inclusive, nourishing, and regenerative food systems for all Indonesians.
Right. So, given these challenges that we have in regards to rice production, so what opportunities does Indonesia have to transform its food system?
There is, as I mentioned, there is progress. I think an opportunity is recently released by the presidential regulation number 81 2024 on the acceleration of food diversity based on local resource. I think that shows political commitment and that gives us an opportunity to really accelerate locally driven food diversification. That's an approach that we advocate for based on our findings, but also, continuing the work of a lot of scientists and advocates and practitioners that have been working on the field of local food systems since years, So this is an excellent opportunity to capitalize. First, the presidential regulation. It means there's a policy framework that supports the goal of localizing food systems. But there's also another opportunity is seen from the Makan Bergizi Gratis program that has been a huge talk in the food systems realm, because this is a momentum that we can use. We can actually use this program to see or create the model of inclusive, nourishing, and regenerative food systems, because it's not only applied at national level, but we can also try to apply it not just generalized, but also in depth. So use several places to create models, to create ideal models of Indonesian local food systems. Yeah, Carin, those are the two opportunities that I see.
And of course, Carin, as we see, we are such a diverse, and also we're a country that is so vast in regards to, the program and also the campaign by our current president right now and his administration. There are still a lot of, I think, research that needs to be done, right? The opportunities that you were seeing and the challenges, they're all data that we actually could see. And there are some, rules of science and research in transforming the Indonesia food system. How significant you think, these research are, for example, like you in the Independent Research Institute of Food, for these kind of programs to be fruitful for our nation?
Yeah, the challenge is really, I think in Indonesia's case, the challenge is really to have all sources of knowledge in one place or at the same level. So not just science, but also tradition, so knowledge that is brought down through generations, and then also knowledge that is gained from practice. So practitioners who have been working on the field, combining these three knowledge are key. We found in our paper or in our report are key for transformation, particularly in Indonesia's case. I think science, particularly implementation science, can help sort of realize this science policy practice interface because take an example of existing practices, right? Indigenous agroforestry systems. It exists across Indonesia. Ada Parak, Pelak, Repong, Damar in Sumatra or Kaliwu in Sumba. All these systems, we can try to use science to sort of find the common denominator of the systems and then try to scale it up. So I think Pedagogic's goal is really to, or I guess, use that method and approach that can find a generalizable model or approach that can be applicable at local level, but also generalizable for the whole Indonesia.
I totally agree with you, Carin, because definitely with all the policies and the programs that are initiated by the administration, everything has to be localized. So you're kind of like amplifying, there's no old system and new system. Actually, we're just amplifying all the system all together. Then it could be implemented by all this, by all the people throughout the region, localizing it.
Yeah, that's true. And I totally agree with you since we have been sustained for thousands of years as Indonesians, and we've never faced any problems up until now. So we can learn, of course, from history and also from our ancestors. So in your flagship report, since I've read through it, you highlighted important points like participation of young people, agricultural diversification, and synergies between science, policy, and also practice. So could you elaborate more on those?
Yeah. So our report aims to figure out the key entry points for transforming Indonesia toward better health and more environmental sustainability. And what we found is that we did an expert analysis and literature review, and what we found is there are 12 entry points, but the three key ones that are important for climate and health are one, encouraging the role of youth, as you mentioned, and then diversifying agriculture and increasing land productivity. This we focuses a lot, or we advocate a lot on agroforestry systems. So like you said, existing systems, combining it with new systems. And then the last one is supporting the implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of sustainable food policies. So these three things, or entry points as we call it, are what needs to be supported to ensure that Indonesia transforms its food system toward toward better health and environmental sustainability. And this is, I think, one way to apply this is through the presidential regulation 81/2024.
Right.
As you know, it shows, as I said, it shows political commitment. There's shared vision. There's strategic planning and policies shown in this regulation, but also we are lacking effective implementation and accountability. So this is where we can sort of engage youth to be involved in monitoring and evaluating these policies through just asking about it, be curious about it. How is this policy being implemented on the ground? Are they aligned with, or are programs in the future related to food, climate, and health aligned with the regulation, the newly established regulation? I think all these questions related to those three things are sort of, there's a dynamic between it, across it, and ensuring that, youth are involved and also the two things are achieved.
I think every element plays a big factor, especially for the food system. We're here in Indonesia. We do have a new governance and a new administration. This is something to look forward right here in Indonesia. But one more last question from us, Carin. In regards to the food system in Indonesia, what is your hopes not only for the future, but the present day that you would like to see, changes and also the potentials that we can apprehend?
Yeah, I like to see more localized food systems. So Indonesia is really rich in diversity, biodiversity, but also agro-biodiversity, so diversity in food, but also food cultures, languages, traditions. And I sort of want us to realize and discover this richness that we have. I heard your talk about gotong royong. Those are some of the values that I think are important for us to integrate it back into Indonesian food systems, but also other cultures and traditions that we already have, and then include that in our localized food system. So localized, not just only in the geographical scale. So thinking about local is not just not Indonesia anymore, and localizing it more into a regional level or desa level, village level. But also a culturally and contextually appropriate food systems. That's my dream.
Yeah,
I love that. We're on the path. We're on the right track right here, Carin.
Hopefully. Yes.
Thank you very much for your time, Carin.
Thank you very much, Carin, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and have a good remainder of the sleep after this.
Enjoy your day, Carin. Thank you very much.
Yes.
That was Carin Noerhadi as the Indonesian researcher in Germany for the Independent Research Institute for Pedagogic.
Yes, folks. So right now, let's take a break. And after the break, we have more updates just for you. So stay tuned with us only on the Morning Show.